Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. This week and for the last 2 days, I've been part of an event organized by the ministry here, the Science and Technology Ministry. It's an event that's been targeting or covering the subject of corporate venture capital. So we've had two distinctive voices in the space, and they've really been taking us through what it takes, giving us case studies and practical examples based on their extensive experience. My guest is from Hindsight Ventures, and he's going to really talk about the work that he's done in the last 2 days, of course, as well as what they're planning to do in the future, because we see quite a lot, or I see quite a lot of partnerships growing out of this because of some of the feedback that I've gotten and I'm going to be writing about in the podcast as well as the magazine. But once again, we hope that you enjoy what we've put together for you. Thank you for subscribing and thank you for listening. So Ajay, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been doing in the last 2 days.
Thank you for having me on the show. My name is Ajay Ramasubramaniam. I am the founder and CEO of Startup Reseau, which is our global organization, and also the co-founder and CEO of Hindsight Ventures, which is an Africa-focused organization. I wouldn't call ourselves just as an ESO because it kind of straitjackets us or brackets us in a limited space. But we see ourselves as a new age niche consulting organization which works with or at the intersection of technology innovation and entrepreneurship. So we work with startups in running startup accelerators and innovation programs which are typically backed by corporates, by development organizations, by governments. We work with universities to enable entrepreneurship at a campus level or at the youth entrepreneurship level. We run programs focusing on women entrepreneurs. And like you mentioned, the 2 days that I have spent here, this was a workshop, for lack of better words, to enhance mobility of local capital in Uganda. If you look at startups, I think capital is super critical for startups to grow and scale. A lot of times we are dependent on VCs, on foreign money coming in, on DFIs kind of giving out grants. But if you're able to mobilize local capital, I think it ticks off a lot of boxes. Most importantly, startups don't have to run different directions to scout for capital. But at the same time, when local capital gets deployed in market, it automatically creates a lot of trust for foreign capital to come in. Okay. So these 2 days were pretty much to talk about how can you unlock local capital in Uganda and build a flourishing corporate venture capital ecosystem which allows the Ugandan startup ecosystem to move forward.
Okay. Now in terms of how your journey has been getting to this current position, give us a little bit of a rough idea. Experience that you've gone through, places that you've worked, valuable insights that you've gained over the years that have gotten you to the place where you're at right now.
So this is probably 12 years that I've been doing this, working with startups, operating startup-related programs. Prior to starting Startup Reseau and Hindsight Ventures, which is a 5.5-year-old journey, I spent about 6 years prior to that with a Canadian university, Ryerson University, for whom I set up a startup accelerator and venture fund in India and Vietnam. So I've been doing this for about 12 years, day in and day out, meeting with either startups or stakeholders of the startup ecosystem. Began my career in East Africa and Tanzania, stayed there for 4 years, working on very different kind of programs and projects. But most importantly, my stint in Tanzania for those 4 years, it gave me an opportunity to be an entrepreneur and build an agri-value inputs business back in the day, after which I spent a few years with the Canadian government working for the province of Ontario. So last 2 decades it has been a very enriching kind of a journey for me. And what I do today in Africa and in the innovation space or the entrepreneurship space, it just is a culmination of sorts of all the experiences I've been fortunate enough to gather over the years.
Okay, give us a little bit of a rough idea in terms of Hindsight's reach as well as Reseau, in terms of what you're doing, what you're focus areas are, what your investment envelope looks like or wallet looks like.
Sure. So Hindsight Ventures. So while the name has ventures in it, we are not an investment agency or we are not an investment fund, even though the eventual goal is to set up an Africa-focused fund, but that is still to be seen when in the near future. Hindsight Ventures has been a 4.5-year-old journey. I mean, time flies. December 2020 is when we carved out Hindsight Ventures from Startup Reseau. Essentially, we operate programs, like I said, but what we have done over the past 4.5 years, we have operated 19 cohort-based programs.
Okay.
We have evaluated close to 10,000 startups across sub-Saharan Africa. About 304 startups have been through our programs. We have written small checks to 11 startups who have gone on to raise almost a 300x multiplier in terms of follow-on capital. But in terms of who all we have worked with, right? So we work with large organizations which are typically corporations like Microsoft Africa Transformation Office, AB InBev, Absa Bank in Kenya and Tanzania. But on the other hand, we also work with development organizations like JICA, with whom we have done a program here in Uganda, work with UNCDF in Tanzania. But apart from that, we run our own IP, our own programs. Wazo Challenge. Wazo, again, in Swahili means idea, and it was our first entry point into the African market. Over the last 5 years, we have ran Wazo Challenge across Kenya, Tanzania, East Africa, Nigeria, and this year it has morphed into a dedicated program with Absa Bank in Tanzania, building the future of fintech. At the same time, we also have run programs focusing on women entrepreneurs called the Women Entrepreneur Leadership Development Bootcamp. And my first visit to Uganda was last year in April, the third edition of the program and the first one that we did in Uganda. Prior to which we had done editions in Kenya and Tanzania. So we are a fairly broad-based organization running our own branded programs, corporate-backed programs, and programs that we operate as operators or service providers to contractors.
Okay. Now, in terms of the successes or some of the projects that you've backed, in terms of 1,000 or 10,000 plus applications, and then 3,000 that you've that came through. What are the things that stand out about those particular applications? Not to kind of create like a cheat sheet for people, but what are some of the things that you're excited about that people have presented for you in the past few years?
I think if you look at whether you look at Uganda as a country, whether you look at East Africa as a region, or if you look at Africa as a continent, I think the themes are pretty much similar, irrespective of which part you go to. Whether you look at fintech/financial inclusion, whether you look at agri-tech, you look at supply chain and logistics, because many of the countries are landlocked. If you look at healthcare, I think these are common trends, and the unique factor about these common trends are that the problems are similar. So which means that many of these companies can actually be scalable as long as you're doing well, as long as you have the unique economics of sorts. It makes it investable. A lot of times, if a company is not massively scalable, it is not venture fundable. So that is where the buck stops. But at the same time, I think if you look at the different emerging technology hubs or entrepreneurship hubs across the continent, there's a lot of positives, lot of intent, lot of interest. But at the same time, one has to understand that it is a journey. It is not something that you benchmark and you're able to implement and magic happens overnight. Every startup ecosystem in the world where the ecosystem has evolved, where you've had success stories, it has been a journey of sorts. I mean, there are a lot of companies in Africa who have successfully raised venture capital money, but you cannot build a business with just 1 million or 2 million. You need sustained capital. The challenge is that not too many companies have seen exits. And that is what kind of makes it difficult for companies to raise future capital, because once a fund is fully vested and the investments do not give the returns, probably the investor is not able to or unable to raise follow-on rounds himself or themselves, because of which they are unable to deploy any further capital. There's also an increased dependency of sorts on DFI money, which is more or less loosely put grants, and you see a lot of grantpreneurs. I'm sorry for using that word, but it is what it is. People need to understand a bit more about building a business, generating revenues, building the economics into it, because that is what attracts follow-on capital to come in. So it is a journey, and we are fully vested in it, and that's why we are here for the past 4.5-5 years. And even when we started back when this was pretty much I wouldn't call it a project, but something which started in the middle of COVID. COVID, amongst everything bad that it did across the world, what helped us was that we were able to leverage digital a lot, and we were able to attend a lot of events and conferences virtually. It allowed us to get entrenched into the broader African ecosystem. I'm saying Africa, but it is a few markets, because at the end of the day, you cannot qualify Africa as one market. It is 54 unique markets. But at least it allowed us to get that foot in the door and get embraced with open arms. And it has been a journey. We believe in the long run play. This is my 9th visit to Uganda in the last 1 year, and I believe that markets like Kampala, countries like Uganda, there's a lot of potential and opportunity for startups. And I'm not just talking of technology startups or digital startups. There might be companies working in the agribusiness space. There might be MSMEs who work in other industries. But it does provide a lot of opportunity, and it is very optimistic.
Okay. I wanted to take you back, because I'm going to be trying to cover some of the conversations you had with us and presented while you were here in Kampala, to some of the things that you mentioned. You talked about the EDGE framework for accessing innovation. Could you please elaborate a little bit about that part? Because I think my users will benefit from that understanding.
Sorry, I didn't.
The EDGE framework?
The EDGE framework, okay. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at technology and innovation, so a lot of times people tend to bracket all technology as digital, whereas it may not necessarily be the case, because any kind of product that is being built, I mean, the product itself goes through iteration in terms of the stage at which is. The second one could be the size of the market itself. A lot of times you have like great innovation, but the market is too small. It becomes not so lucrative for investment. And the third piece is the rate of adoption. In many cases, if adoption is slow, and the product is good, the industry is big, but if adoption isn't there, then also it is not kind of investable. So keeping it from those three angles, or viewing it from those three angles of the stage of product development or product growth, the size of the industry, and the rate of adoption in those industry, or the market strength in adoption, I think technology can be classified, or innovation can be classified into 4 different brackets: E, D, G, and E, which is EDGE. The first E is more of experimental, and as the name suggests, it is kind of trying out stuff. The D stands for disruptive, which is kind of moving away from the status quo. G stands for game changing, which kind of it happens with digital all the time. I mean, you completely kind of change the way business is done, or customers are acquired, or whatever. And the last E stands for exponential, and exponential here stands for not a 1x growth, not a 10x growth, but where there can be a 100x growth. And growth not just in terms of revenue, it could be in terms of people using phone, people using the internet, or whatever it is. So in that way, if you look at technology and innovation, we came up with a report a couple of years back, and in that we tried to kind of qualify innovation and technology as not just being disruptive, but being experimental, disruptive, game-changing, and exponential. So that is what the EDGE framework stands for.
Okay, and then also people will be interested in the 3 case studies that you gave about how some companies leveraged their position to create new products and new services. You talked about Azam, Naspers, and Chandaria. Could you just expand a little bit on that too, so that the listeners can get a perspective of where you're coming from with that?
No. So when you look at CVC or corporate venture capital, I think it is more strategic in nature more than anything else, and strategic from 2 angles. Either business is a business to make money, and there's nothing wrong in it. So when people set up, or organizations set up CVC or corporate venture capital, either they're doing it to leverage the deep pockets they have and generate more revenue, more wealth, or they're looking at bringing something innovative which will allow them to be more cost effective, more productive, more efficient. So the examples I was giving was more centric to Africa as a continent. Whether you look at companies like Azam, whether you look at companies like Naspers, you look at the Chandaria group, and this was from a lens of CVC as to why each of those organizations, or how each of those organizations has picked up a very specific reason or purpose because of which they have set up a CVC arm, or they have been investing in startups over the past several years.
Okay. Now, in terms of what does the future look like after this conversation that we've had, there was some content available in terms of how you structured this meeting with some online meetings and then the physical gathering. what does the future look like in terms of you training or equipping or dealing with different countries or geographies in terms of getting them ready for the move into CVC? What does the future look like? How is for Hindsight Ventures in terms of how much more work are you going to be doing in this area for?
No, I mean, we are. I mean, as Hindsight Ventures, Africa is the only market that we do, and we continue to work with partners like STI or large corporations, whether it is governments, universities, corporates. I mean, we operate programs, and eventually, like I said, the end goal is to start making, the next step is to make balance sheet based investments outside of grants, but eventually to set up an Africa focused fund is what we want to do. But that doesn't take away the consulting bit or the business bit of being an operator, because it's only because we are an operator, we understand many domains, we understand a lot of businesses, we're able to kind of add value. It's not just about being able to write a check or something, but being the consultative approach to doing business. And if you're able to bring that value to startups and the networks that we have as Startup Reseau, given the number of markets that we work with, I think Startup Reseau and Hindsight Ventures both lean on each other. Hindsight Ventures because Startup Reseau has been around for a long time. We've been doing this work for a long time in multiple markets. And because a lot of partners and clients that we work with under Startup Reseau, Africa is a market of interest, Hindsight Ventures becomes relative. So both the organizations kind of feed off each other.
Okay. In terms of how people can get in touch with you, if they need services, if they need consultancy, or how can people get in touch with you? What are your contacts, please?
My email is AJ, just two alphabets. My name is Ajay, so it is just A and J, at startup STARTUP Reseau RESEAU.com. AJ at startupreseau.com is my email address.
As well as your LinkedIn?
My LinkedIn is it goes by my full name. It is Ajay Ramasubramaniam. So yeah, just look me up. It is AJAY first name, and the second name is Ramasubramaniam, RAMASUBRAMANIAM. So you can add me and I'll accept the request.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and for coming to engage with us here in Kampala, and we really appreciate your inputs.
Thank you, much appreciated, and look forward to being more involved in this ecosystem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.